Hello, hello. Welcome back to Decoding the Flow, the podcast where we explore creative consciousness. I am your host, Drica Lobo, and today's guest is someone who has spent years supporting, documenting, and championing artists from the inside out. Genie Davis is a writer, curator, journalist, and founder of Diversions Fine Arts here in Los Angeles. Through decades immersed in the art world, she has interviewed and supported countless creatives while helping building meaningful spaces for artists and creatives to connect in the community. What I love about Jenny's perspective is that she's not only witnessing creativity, she's actively creating spaces where artists can thrive. In today's conversation, we explore authenticity, visibility, creative community, the evolving roles of galleries, and what truly makes artists memorable beyond trends and algorithm. Please help me welcome Jenny Davis to Decoding the Flow. Thank you, Jenny. I'm happy to have you here.
Well, thanks so much. I really appreciate being here. Yeah, I've been working as both an arts writer and a curator for about 15 years now. And I just opened my gallery, Diversions Fine Arts, in Manhattan Beach a couple of months ago. And so we just finished setting up our third show yesterday, which opens. I don't know when you guys are running the interview, but it opens on May 9th from 4 to 7. So yeah.
That is so beautiful. I can't wait to check out your new space or new gallery. I saw the very first day that you opened. It was really packed of beautiful people and artists and people who love art. So my question is, what made you want to open a physical gallery in an increasing digital world?
Well, I think there's three things behind that. First of all, in a very practical sense, I was offered the space when the gallerist who'd been in there before wanted to leave in order to make a move. And so it was easy to take over, the lease. And that's been something that I've been wanting to do for a long while, to have a gallery space. So it just sort of seemed fated to be at that particular time. I think that digital works, even though it's a really good way to promote your work and to get your work out there, promoting wise. I do not think the digital shows sell particularly well for artists. I think that experiencing the art is kind of like a community, experience where, you need to see it in person. Beyond that, I wanted to try a new model because I don't like for artists to pay 50% to a gallery for selling their work. On the other hand, they need to have some stake in promoting their work and getting their work out there and getting it seen, by their fans and finding new fans and all of that. And of course, the practical consideration that the rent has to be covered. We're doing a membership model. It's super, reasonably priced membership, and artists each get one solo show and a couple of pieces in a group show annually. And I also do an article that they can share, use for whatever they'd like on their individual works themselves. And they get a studio visit either by Zoom or in person. And so it's a good package. And we only take 10% commission. So when most galleries are taking 50% commission and we're taking 10, I mean, we had a couple of artists last month, one that sold a piece that was $1,000 piece and another piece that was 1,500 with a couple of other sales pending for her. Obviously, what ends up happening is they're being able to take home most of what they're making from their art, as opposed to having to hand over 50% to the gallery. So that's kind of my model. And I feel like that model type is something that I'm thinking more people are going to adapt over time, because so many gallerists are struggling with trying to pay their rent, and they're sort of, putting a lot of pressure on artists and only taking people that they know for sure can sell. Whereas, I would like absolutely every artist that I have in the gallery lineup for the next year to have, to make sales because I want them to make money. But if they're new to it or they haven't, or they just basically want to show off their work so that they can maybe get themselves a museum show or, or get a showing in a foreign gallery and show, images from their solo or what have you, that they have that experience as well. So it's not quite as much a requirement that, hey, if you don't sell 4 or 5 pieces, I'm never going to show you again
Mhm.
because you're not covering my rent. So I think that's something that many artists struggle with. They get shown, and then after they're shown, if they haven't made, $20,000 or something like that for, a show, it's not feasible for that gallery to have them back, because they needed to have 3 months, or a month or whatever the number is, covered by the commissions. So 10 charging only 10% commission, doing a fully curated show. I do all the promo, I do the Instagram and the Facebook and all of that. And then again, the articles. I think that the artists are more able to focus on just getting people to come in the door for their own work, number one, and have a beautiful show that they can add to their portfolio.
Yeah, that is a beautiful model that you've built in your gallery. I definitely going to check it out. And I love the way that you are also seeing other galleries implementing this system. It seems more like a win-win to everybody.
I certainly think so, and I think the thing is that, I mean, there've been membership galleries before, obviously around LA, but they don't usually curate their own shows. They usually require artists to gallery sit and, they don't do the package with, there's writing and there's this and there's that can kind of help further the artist's career. So I'm trying to kind of build a community for artists that they feel really successful with their work and that they are really successful with their work.
Yeah, that is fantastic. So you've been, before you open up your physical space, you've been creating art shows all over not only Los Angeles or South Bay for so many years. What do you look? What makes art a good art in your eyes?
I think there's 3 layers of that too. Maybe everything I'm gonna answer has 3 layers. My the first layer I think is just visually, is it something that grabs my heart? Is it something that is visually, interesting? I can't take my eyes off of the piece that's behind you in the studio. It's
Ah, that's great.
And is it something that both the palette and the line and the meaning behind the work are something that, one or the other or all 3, grab you? So that's
Mhm.
number 1. Number 2 would be how professionally things are presented. So that if it's and I don't mean that they have to have fancy framing, but the canvases need to be professionally stretched and they need to be able to have titles that are things that are interesting to people, that aren't just something that might confuse, viewers, something that again either expresses what the work is or their own, personal feelings. So that's something I would look at, secondarily. And third, you kind of look at to see the body of that artist's work. Like if I see something by someone I've never seen before, which happens all the time, of course, then I want to also be able to see their other work online and to see either how they've progressed or what their other work looks like. Because if someone has just done one really amazing piece, but all of their other pieces are something that doesn't grab me, that would be more difficult to curate into a show.
That's so great. If somebody listening to this podcast, usually creative people, but how they can teach their own art collectors how to see an art an art piece? Is there like certain ways? Because to me, it's such a personal experience.
Yes.
How can you guide new art collector into finding something that they love, into finding meaning, not just aesthetic, and teaching them how to look at art?
Well, I think the way that you would teach your collectors how, or your would-be collectors how to look at art is to kind of ask them some questions about how the art looking at the art makes them feel. Does it make them happy? Would they like to feel happy every day when they look at the piece? Does it bring up a memory that's, maybe of someone that they loved? Or is it something that, they just, emotionally respond to, and just kind of talk to them at length a little bit. I don't mean like for hours, but, to spend enough time with them to ask them what a particular piece evokes to them, because then they'll become invested in it and become invested in their own feelings of the art. And so much of art appreciation and buying is about the feelings that a piece of art evokes.
Yeah.
Then in terms of promotion, artists really need to be using social media, and they really need to be getting a mailing list. And it's all too clear that if artists, don't sort of follow like a gallery's, methods or instructions or whatever, they're not going to sell as well. So like if you say, hey, post, 3 or 4 social media posts between now and when the show comes out, or if you say, I need the title, I need the work delivered on this day, blah, 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 then you're going to be on your way toward a successful relationship also with your collectors or potential collectors. Because if you're not able to do that for the gallery or for, the writer or what have you, that you're showing that probably you're not going to put that level of care with the collector. When you do sell, or you're on the verge of selling, you want to make sure that, you're able to deliver the work in a timely fashion, and the frame isn't damaged, the wires are good, or if it's a sculpture, that there's no chips on it, and there's maybe you also want to probably talk to your potential collector about where they want to display the work. Is it something they want to have on a covered patio? Will your work survive out there? Is it something that, that they want to have in a child's room, whatever, like find out what they're looking for and be able to, express that you have that work, and again, once again, come back to the meaning of that work for them.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for sharing. So, after working with so many artists over the years, what patterns do you notice in the creatives who stay deeply connected with themselves that also it's expressed through their work?
I would say that the people who are really believe in their art and really enjoy their art, people who just really want to express themselves, there's sort of a constant flow of work. People
Mhm.
might take like a several month break from painting or sculpting or creating multimedia or what have you, but they're always going to return to it because it's something that makes them feel alive. I did an artist this last show. I don't know if you know the artist, Amy Thornberry. She's out of San Pedro. She's wonderful, by the way, and she was talking about how, it's this crazy thing, you're just compelled to do it. You have to keep creating. You don't feel like you're okay unless you create. And I think that's really true of most artists that have a passion for their work. You just have to keep creating. I know that when I was, in several career incarnations ago, writing novels and screenplays, you need to do it. You don't want to take you might take the day off to go do something fun, but you're not going to take like months off and ignore that muse. And I think it's absolutely the same thing for visual artists.
Yeah. What makes an artist truly memorable to you beyond technical skills?
Again, I think it's the soul, of the painting.
Mhm.
There are, some artists that just absolutely exude, soul. Their work is just comes deeply from their heart, and it's something, whether they have a practice that they paint every single night when they come home from work, or they have a practice in which they just do these massively large canvases that, even if they don't know who's going to purchase that, it's something that they are just driven to do. Again, it's the heart and the soul of a work, and art is very subjective, but I think that if you don't, if you don't put your own heart and soul into it, it's not gonna connect with someone else's heart and soul, whether
Yeah.
that's to exhibit it or to sell it or to just have it as part of your legacy.
Yeah. That's so beautiful put. I love when you speak about the soul behind the painting. because it's totally connected with the artist itself, right? The artist so expressing, very beautiful. What is the artist's role in today's society now with the advance of technology and AI?
Well, I'm going to answer that in two parts. In regard to advanced technology and AI, again, as a writer, I'm not super fond of AI. It's great for doing an outline, but it's not going to, again, there's no soul in that. And so
Yeah.
I know some people do digital work that includes elements of AI. And if it's something that you can work into your own work, splendid, I suppose. But again, it's not a substitute for actually having the gift of doing the art. Like, it's not enough for you to be like, "Look, I can create something that's almost as good as Van Gogh, but you've done it all with the aid of AI." Again, you're missing that soul component, and you're missing kind of the point of creating art, I think. I mean, I'm not saying that with, like, all digital art. Some people create gorgeous pieces on digital. I know several artists who do absolutely just lustrous works that they, originates on their iPad, but that's original work. That's not, that they're plugging information into a program, and telling the program what to do with it. But I think in today's world, it's important to keep that human element alive in whatever work you do, however you're doing it. But more than that, I think in today's world, it's important to take a stand for something and show something, whether that's, just compassion for, the human race, or compassion for certain people, or whether it's, a meaningful point, to you personally. I think it's very important to express your feelings and to get it out there, to humanize things, and to also, reach an audience. So in some ways, I've heard this said, and I think it's very true, that artists are, visual artists are the true revolutionaries, because you can get out there and you grab eyes, you grab hearts, you grab minds, you tell them, "Hey, we want to live like this, not like this other way."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How today is like more and more that has been studies showing that living with art can improve so much of somebody's mental health just by being contacted to it.
Mhm.
But I still believe that somehow people see art as decorative, something that is not really a necessity.
Mhm.
Do you think this is shifting, or if not, how we can make that change so people can fully understand the importance of having an original art at their home? You are listening to Decoding the Flow with me, Drica Lobo. If this conversation is inspiring you, take a moment to follow the show and share it with someone who is ready to live more creatively. You can find more inspiration, art, and behind the scenes stories at dricalobo.com or my Instagram at Drica Lobo Art. Now, let's take a deep breath and get back to the flow. Before we go deeper, I want to share something with you. There was a time that I never felt like I could fit in. Something in me, this firework of colors that wants to be expressed, but I didn't feel like I had permission to be that person. And the truth is, artists, the creators, the people that I would look up for, they all embody everything that I was. But I never felt like I could be until I realized something was missing. I just needed to be in spaces and around people who helped me dare. Because if you don't dare, you can spend the entire lifetime just thinking that nothing else is possible. And that's why I created the Creative Flow activation. It's not only a 12-day course program, it's a return to who you are before you start holding yourself back. If there's something inside of you that is ready to come back to life, join the wait list. You can find the link below, and I'll see you there. Now back to the episode. Sorry to interrupt your podcast, but I just want to let you know that this is the last few days that you can get a copy of the first edition of my book, Decoding the Flow. I wrote this book back in 2020, and I have to tell you that this book not only changed my entire life, but it changed the lives of so many creatives and artists You can read the reviews on Amazon, but this book, we decided we are going to discontinuing selling this book only because I am in the middle of writing the second edition. But the reason I want you to get a copy of this book, because this is the basic needs of living a creative life that is aligned with your soul. This is the beginning of everything. We only have 10 copies of this book, and I'm going to leave the link underneath for you to get direct from my publisher. So it's going to be shipped to you from Culver City at Los Angeles, California. So don't get from Amazon. So get the last 10 copies from my publisher, and I can't wait for you to get your copy. Okay, back to the episode.
Well, I think first of all, in order to appeal to people, the people have to be able to afford your work. So if you're trying to introduce a new audience or you're trying to introduce people, at an early stage, maybe they're just, out of college, they're just out of high school, they have been to, walked past a museum and thought, oh, that's cool, but I could never afford that. You need to be able to reach those people by having things that are accessible to them, whether that means creating numbered signed original prints, or it means having, one or two small pieces that you can introduce someone to become a collector with. In terms of people that are already are able to purchase the art, or they're people that are looking for exhibits at a museum or whatever. I think, again, you need to have a message. You need to have something that is gonna reach people. So if your message is like, I think that's why you often see people that do paintings or other works, that photography or what have you, that mirrors their environment, because you're connecting to a large extent with either people that are in your environment or people who are drawn to your environment. So I think that certain things appeal to different people. So if you're living near the beach, chances are that you like the ocean. So if you're trying to convince someone that art in their home will make them feel happier, then you might want to pick something, you might want to show them something that you've done that reflects an environment they're already comfortable in. Or if you're in New York City, will people want to have something that maybe is very different than New York and is pristine nature, or or are they looking for something that it reflects the energy or the physicality or the landscape of the city? So I think appealing to that is important, but in terms of letting people know that it helps their mental health, I think you could research and have a quick little example of something like that, but it's definitely true. I know from just being in my gallery space, if I've had a difficult day doing that, I get into my space, and just seeing other people's art is inspiring, is like, cleansing both visually and emotionally, I think. So I think it's important to let people know that logically, but I think it's more important to let them feel that, which comes back to finding out what they're into. Like if you talk to someone a little bit, they're looking at your work and you say, "Oh, do you love abstracts?" Let's say you're doing an abstract. And they're like, "Well, no, I'm looking at this, but I really like a figurative landscape." Kind of guide them in that direction, whether you're, a gallerist, a fellow collector, or whatever. And I think that also comes back to artists supporting other artists. Your work may be one thing with, let's say, a bright palette and, clean lines. And someone's like, yeah, I really just like, things that are like so totally abstract. So if you're referring other artists or championing, championing their work, then, I think you're going to get, similar, not referrals necessarily, but discussion of your work in return.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Do you think from your experiences, artists today struggles more with visibility or authenticity?
Visibility. I mean, I think if you're an artist, you're either authentic or you're not. If you're copying
Yeah.
somebody else's work, then it is what it is. But, visibility, again, it's hard because the traditional gallery model is that, the gallery gets, 50%. And so they need that 50%. I know from myself that I have had greatly underestimated the time that I curate the show and then he does the install. And I greatly underestimated the amount of time that it takes to you're constantly, repatching the walls, repainting the walls, hanging the art. Almost every show there's someone that has a piece of art that's hung in an unusual fashion, whether it's, using hooks or, uh, you know, uh, things that are diptychs that need to be positioned very close, what have you. There's always something that's a little bit of a challenge. And so it takes a lot of time. So of course the gallery needs to be able to at least reasonably accommodate, paying an employee, paying for the gallery space, right? There, once again, it comes down to, can this person sell? If they have a choice between someone who consistently sells and has very hangable art and someone who does more experimental work that's really revolutionary perhaps in some way, visually or message wise or what have you, they're gonna choose kind of the safer thing. It's the same reason why Hollywood produces, remakes and sequels, because they kind of have a sense of their return. And I think it's super important to hold space for people that are either new or they're not, wanting to go with that very commercial model, and to get people seen, because once they're seen, if it's a good professionally curated venue and they're seen, that's how word is gonna spread that, "Oh, well, they were in this show." So then other people will want to display them, museums will wanna display them, collectors will wanna collect them.
Yeah. Is there any tips that you could give to artists who are maybe facing this issue with visibility? What would you tell them to do in small steps?
Um, a couple of things. I'd start off by saying that you need a website. So you should definitely have a website so that people can look at your work, and it should be a nice clean website, not something that's got outdated work on it, or, things that are jumbled up or anything like that. And that way people can reference your work and see it. Secondly, if you're approaching a gallery, no matter what gallery it is, or you need to be able to present them with work that is, again, the frames are, decent if you're framing them. The canvas is stretched decently if you're stretching them. If it's a sculpture, that it actually stands and doesn't topple over or break or something like that. You need to deliver like your title, your pricing, your dimensions, as asked, and show that you have a track record of doing that. There's a very well known and beloved in Los Angeles art curator who used to have a gallery, doesn't have a gallery anymore, but does, big pop-up shows. And one of the things that he has always said, which I agree with, is like, how is it that, you want to get this, an artist wants to get into a show, but then they don't provide the information for you, they're late in delivering, or they can't, hit those dates or whatever. You really need to put that level of professionalism into the work, and I'm not talking anything in crazy. I used to think that, like, oh, maybe he was being, like, a little bit harsh in what he said. I'm not gonna name names in case he doesn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think he's pretty vocal about what he wants. But I think that what he says is very important, because the artists who make it easy for the gallerist, are gonna be, even if they're unknown, they've never sold before, whatever, if they make it easy, they're so easy to work with, pleasant, their work is, ready to go, they're gonna be more likely to break through than someone who, has all of their stuff stacked in the back of a pickup truck or what have you.
Yeah. I love it. I love that. Such a great tips. Something that artists may misunderstand about working with galleries or curators.
I think that from a curatorial standpoint, again, I think artists have to understand that their work must speak to the curator or they're not going to be included. It has nothing to do with, I mean, it's a much lower level in terms of curation as to whether something is commercially, viable. It has to speak to the curator, first of all, for them to want to put all of that time. And there's a lot of time that goes into putting a show together, not just the physicality of the install, which is time consuming too. You want to know how the show's going to lay out. You want to know that this is work that you really want to see. So it's just basically working from the heart and making sure that a curator knows that this work is something that's meaningful to you. I mean, I've seen shows that are like very unusual or unique, or pieces that are made with found art or things like that. And the thing that's very important is that those pieces have personal meaning to the artist that they've able to not only put into the work, but they can articulate it. So I think that's important to the curator. And that may be overlooked. People might think like, oh, well, I'm commercial or, oh, well, my work is very colorful or, what have you, and think that that's enough. So you want to make that sort of, I'm not going to say personal one-on-one connection with the curator necessarily, but something that is going to connect with the curator and make them feel that the work is something that they want to spend that time with. As far as galleries go, I think many artists, if they have, whether they've had success in the past or they haven't, it's showing many artists feel like they have their own vision and they want to impart that on the gallery. And I think that it's important to both be able to comfortably express that vision to a gallery so that the gallery knows that's what the artist wants. But at the same time, if the gallery says like, no, I don't want pieces about, let's say, identity, I want pieces about the environment or vice versa, that you're able to pivot and say, well, this speaks to this or whatever. So you need to be flexible and not too rigid, as well as being able to express your own points.
Yeah. Yeah, I always say in this podcast, it's very important for the artists, self included, to master our craft and to look for ways that you can evolve over time. But I think it's also, most importantly, it's to find why you are creating what you're creating, because that is what is going to connect with
Yes.
with the outside world to see.
Absolutely. You totally went back to what I think is my main and crucial point is that if you have heart and soul in your art, you
Yeah.
will find your audience.
Yeah.
Unless you're really, really horribly difficult to work with or, or something, you will find your audience because people are just gonna somewhere, sometime, someone is going to fall in love with your work. And I've fallen in love with so many artists' work over the years. And those are people that I just love and treasure showing and people that I've been introduced to and feel like is a fresh discovery. It always comes down to discovering that heart and soul, I think.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
What keeps you inspired after all of these years around creativity?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think what's inspiring to me is seeing a story come together. So that's been true with my writing for years, whether it's a story for, a client or it's my own, published novel or produced screenplay or what have you. And it's the same thing with art. If I can curate a show that creates a visual story that resonates with me and with other people, or if I can see an artist who is telling a story that I can share kind of with the world, that's very fulfilling.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. Is there any piece of advice that you'd like to leave either for collectors visiting your gallery or artists who wants to be part of your gallery? What would it be?
A piece of advice
Yes.
for collectors, I think it's like be aware that art, the art needs to speak to you. If a piece speaks to you, but you look at it and you're like, oh, gee, I don't want to spend, 1,500 or 500 or 10,000 on that piece, be aware that piece costs the artist a huge amount of time to create it, not just the materials, but obviously the blood, sweat, and tears that go into the creation of it, and that it is the value of it is the art, itself. It's not a commodity like eating a sushi dinner or something. It's something that is valuable intrinsically in and of itself. So collectors need to be aware that they're not collecting to find something that just fits over the sofa or just fits their budget at that moment, or that they're collecting to, impress a significant other or what have you, or for, corporate entities or what have you. I think that, they need to speak to something that they believe in or that they love. And then the other part of the question you said was advice for the artists going into the galleries. Besides having the really good work, you do need to approach it as, a professional. You cannot have pieces of canvas that are coming off of the back of your mounting. You cannot deliver work that isn't the work that you promised and things like that. You have to be that. And in terms of approaching the gallery to begin with, you need to be able to coherently state that, like, this is what I'm trying to show with my art. This is, and again, not in a commercial way, but in a heartfelt way. Are you trying to express music that you listen to? You're trying to express the beauty of a place you once lived, or what have you. You need to be able to coherently project what it is that you're hoping to achieve with your art in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. We almost done with the time, but I do have another question for you
Sure.
before we wrap up. I see my own art career as almost like the beginning. You're planting a seed, and then your collectors will grow, like the plant, like a garden will grow. But we can see, and in the art world, there's so much mystery about pricing an artwork and
Mm.
why does an artwork may cost $50,000 and
Right.
another one may cost $1,000. How do you see this mystery in the art world, and how can we shift our perception into all this completely opposite
Well, I
variety of
think that
prices?
yeah, the variables, that's a tough one because some people overvalue their work, some people undervalue it, and it really just comes down to the commercial thing. If you
Mhm.
are taken on by a gallery that has a collector base that has a lot of money, and they're going to charge more for your art. If you're just getting started or you're building a following, you're probably not going to have as much luck with a $50,000 piece as you would with a $7,000 piece or a $500 piece. It just depends on who's coming into the gallery. And I think, unfortunately, there's a tendency to either overprice or underprice. I think people will underprice their work because they want to sell, they want to get it out there, they
Mm,
want to get known. And so then, because their work is priced more low, they're gonna sell a lot, but they're spending a lot of their energy creating more and more works to funnel into that market, so you can get burnt out. So just be aware that you're not burning yourself out creating a lot of things that you're not gonna charge a lot for. On the other hand, I think in today's economy and with the socio-political landscape that we have now, not everybody has the money for these big pieces. So if you can have a range of works that go somewhere from $150 up to $15,000, that is kind of a sweet spot if you have things in all of those categories. Personally, I am not in the space myself where I can sell something that's more than 15,000, so that's why I'm using that number. Like I said, we've sold in the, up to almost 10,000 category, and then, many lower end pieces in terms of pricing, but they're still magnificent works. And in some cases, people will want to create some smaller pieces or pieces that take less time, or maybe are almost like studies for larger works or whatever, so that they have that range available to them. But in terms of the art world in general, the problem is that there's celebrity names out there, just as there is with actors in movies. You could be the best actor in the world. You've only been in small indie films. You're going to get, union scale. You're
mm,
not going to get, the price that someone who's a superstar commands. How you get to that point, I think, is a matter of three things: talent, determination, and just luck.
yeah.
So, it is what it is. And maybe doing something that's a little bit out there. Again, not something that I certainly, no pun intended, that appeals to me, but the banana guy and that Art Basel in Miami. It's just showmanship and luck.
It's a breaking the pattern
Mhm.
to gain some attraction somehow,
I mean, like
like the
your
banana
work
guy.
and like your work is so beautifully vibrant and so alive, and I think having that vibrancy, that aliveness is gonna connect with people.
Well, thank you so much. By the way, I want to personally invite you to come to my solo show. It's coming up on May 29
Perfect.
at Easy Reader. I'll send you all of the details. And if you're
Do.
listening or watching, and if you are in South Bay or Los Angeles, please come to my show. I'll put all of the details in the show notes. Jenny, where people can find you, work with you, and anything that you'd like to let us know about your
Um,
future projects too.
well, our website is diversionsfinearts.com, and we are located at 1069 North Aviation Boulevard in Manhattan Beach. I also, and then of course, my publication that I publish art stories on that are my own. I mean, I write for a lot of different publications, but my own site is diversionsla.com. So again, the gallery is diversionsfinearts.com, and the online magazine is diversionsla.com. So very similar names. That's why I kept it
Yeah.
gallery, but slightly different. And you can always reach me via email. My personal email is Genie, Genie Writes, Writes, like writes a letter. Genie Writes to the number two at Gmail. So people can reach me there too. And I'm more than happy to send information on the gallery's membership. I'm more than happy to just talk to people about their art and give them, ideas. I love doing that, and I love doing studio.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That is fantastic. I love that.
if this is airing the month of May, our regular hours are 12 to 4, Thursday through Sunday. That may vary a little bit on Memorial Weekend. We might not do the Sunday of Memorial Weekend.
Beautiful. Perfect. I'll make sure to add all of your information in the show notes. And if you resonate with this interview, please leave your comment with the best takeaway. Thank you, Jenny. I can't wait to visit your gallery. Thanks for spending this time sharing your wisdom with us. And
Thank
I'll see you
you.
next time.
Thank you so much. Bye
Have a
bye.
good one.
Bye.
Bye.